What would you do if you were stripped of your identity, given a number instead of a name, and placed at the mercy of a complete stranger or strangers? Would you follow the orders or would you fight back?
Welcome to Naturally Off Topic. This is a podcast where we discuss legends, theories, crimes, and more. I'm Mariah.
And I'm Megan, and today we're diving in this psychological nightmare locked away in the basement of Stanford University, the Stanford Prison Experiment, which is a study that was meant to last 2 weeks but ended in just 6 days and left the world questioning human nature itself.
Wow, what a long intro. I love it.
I know, I kind of wanted to change it up a little bit. What do you think?
It was good. I liked it because I actually I know you mentioned it to me last week or 2 weeks ago about what you were planning on doing for this podcast. But in the couple of weeks it's been since we chatted, I totally forgot what you were even covering. So
Oh,
I
well
liked
then.
that intro. It was good. It had me on my toesies.
Well, good. I'm glad. Well, welcome everyone to Naturally Off Topic and Mariah, who's now forgetting what my topic was. So, welcome to relearning. Um, so kind of what Mariah is referring to is a couple weeks ago, Mariah kind of helped pick my brain. I was like, I really want to do a different topic. We always say, our in our intro, we say legends, theories, crimes, and more. We've covered the more part in our little drunk topic, but we've never
Which
discussed.
that got rave reviews, by the way. People loved it. So
Oh,
we need more
really?
drunk podcasts.
Oh, easy enough. We love to drink, unfortunately. So,
We'll
every,
we'll have to get it done before August.
oh, absolutely.
Megan's like, stop reminding me. I want to have a baby. So Megan's like, don't ever bring it up.
Mariah's not allowed to have a child. She knows I'm going to be so
You're
mad.
gonna kill my ass.
Thing is I'm going to be the best aunt ever, and I'm going to
Auntie
spoil
Meg.
Auntie Meg is I'm going to spoil the crap out of this little babe, but I'm still going to be annoyed for the 9 months that I lose my
Yeah,
drinking
I get
partner.
it. I need to establish one rule with you preemptively.
Oh,
You
Lord.
cannot have them sit and watch Family Guy if you babysit for more than 1 hour. Like,
Fair. I think I'd be a little concerned though if I'm letting 2-year-olds watch Family Guy and learning
or
like
less, or
or
younger.
less. Yeah, or younger. Like they should probably be sticking with their little what is it? There's like Bluey now.
Oh God.
Um
Miss Rachel, you better not show them Miss Rachel.
uh uh Little Einsteins.
Okay, that one's so gone. Like that one
Oh,
was,
Paw Patrol? Question
I
mark?
don't know if they still have that anymore. I haven't been associated with a kid in like 10 years.
Ah, well anyway, so naturally
So
we're
I'm the
getting
perfect parent, obviously.
obviously. So
I have no idea what
naturally
what trends are happening. I have no idea.
So naturally, we're getting off topic again about your imaginary child that you have not decided to have yet, and we're gonna
No, I
keep.
decided it's just not here yet.
Excuse me. So that is why we're
This is
gonna.
called an intro, Megan. People liked the drunk podcast, so I'm giving a good intro.
I love it.
She's
So
like, no, I want to get right into the story.
no, actually, so what I wanted to tell you though, going back to what I was saying about the theories in our intro title, is one of the coolest things about this episode that I'm doing is how much information that was available and like I was thinking. From when you did American Nightmare, you also had like a massive document with just so much stuff. And
Hmm.
I'm thinking on later on, maybe in our podcast website, we should like publish these, like give people access to them so they can read some of the articles that we read. So anyway, that was like a quick little side note, only because I have like all the consent forms and everything. So,
Scent forms. Oh,
so
interesting.
yeah, so it's like
Yeah.
super interesting. So Mariah, do you know anything about the Stanford Prison Experiment?
Basically, Megan was telling me came across this what documentary it was, and you were pretty interested in it. Or
Well,
there was
yes.
something that caught your eye on this.
Yeah, there was a Disney Plus documentary on
Oh,
it, but I
yes.
did learn about the experiment in high school, I believe, in
'Cause I
psychology.
remember when you told me about it, I was like, Disney Plus? I was like, wow, that mouse is really wild in these days.
Yeah, so actually, funny enough, Disney Plus has a lot of stuff. Like they have The Simpsons, they have a wide range. I think I saw The Proposal on there at one point. Very
Yeah.
random.
So,
So,
well, okay, so how much do I know about it? You brought up the documentary. I said I'm not quite sure what that is. I don't know if I've ever heard it before, but it does sound familiar. Basically, all you were telling me was it was this experiment to see if you were given a position of power, do you treat others differently than you normally would? Is that it?
sort of. You kind of got it. So, let's get into it. Ready? So, imagine you signed up for a psychology study. You're a college student looking to make some extra cash, answering a newspaper ad that promises $15 a day.
That's
The next
bullshit.
the next thing, well, you got to think of the time frame that this was. $15 a day in 1970 equates to about $106 an hour in today's standards.
Okay, mathematician, coming out with the how much that calculates to.
Okay, only mainly because I saw it on the research I did, but thanks.
Okay, 106. Okay. All right, that's not bad for an experiment. Okay.
The next thing you know, real police officers show up at your door, arrest you, throw you in the back of a squad car. You're blindfolded, driven to a prison, stripped down naked, assigned a number, and suddenly you're no longer yourself. You're a prisoner, and this is your reality. This was the beginning of the Stanford Prison Experiment, one of the most infamous psychological studies in history, conducted in August of 1971 by Stanford professor Philip Zimbardo. This experiment set out to examine the psychological effects of perceived power in a prison environment. But what started as a 2 week simulation quickly spiraled out of control, raising chilling questions about human nature, authority, and morality. So, Zimbardo and his team, they wanted to explore the effects of social roles, labels, and authority, and how individuals change when they're given power versus when it's taken away. Inspired by real-world conflicts between guards and prisoners, the U.S. Naval Research funded the study, hoping it would shed light on military prison conflicts. So, any questions so far, darling?
Okay. Hmm. I'm sure you're gonna give me the backstory on it, but I guess more of a comment is that I can't imagine signing up for something and then all of a sudden, without any lead up to it, without any, okay, come here, let's meet here. Okay, this is what the experiment is. Fucking police officers come and just are like, okay, let's go. Like, so that's what you're
So,
thinking happened, or are you just kind of playing it up?
I was playing it up a little bit, so
Okay.
I appreciate your love for the way that I've been wording things because that would be terrible if that was the case. But no,
That's what I literally thought happened. I
these
was like, wait,
people.
what?
So, participants were recruited through a simple newspaper ad. Male college students needed for a psychological study of prison life. $15 per day oh, sorry, per day, not per hour, but it still equates to 106
I
per
think you
day.
did say per day.
Oh, good, good, good. I thought I said per hour.
No.
Uh,
If it was 15 an hour, I'd be like, oh, hell yeah.
Right, I know. For 1 to 2 weeks beginning August 14th, for further information and applications, come to room 248, Jordan Hall, Stanford University.
Oh my God. And this was at Stanford.
Yeah,
Aren't they like highly like well
Stanford.
known? Like,
Yep, Stanford Prison Experiment. I don't know if Stanford University is necessarily an Ivy. It might be. I'm not positive. I know it's very
hmm.
well renowned, and honestly, this study really definitely put them on the map alone, just in
Actually, where is Stanford? Because I know like
California.
oh, I don't know why I thought it was like New England area. Interesting.
New England is home to a lot of
Exactly. I was thinking like Yale,
Harvard.
Bird.
Yep. Um, shoot, I lost my train of thought. I was about to tell you
Sorry.
something, not in that even pertained to the study itself, but just like a fun fact. Something I want to cover in future episodes is something that happened close to my neck of the woods, not to give away my location, called the Westboro Axe Murderers. And it
I
happened
don't
about
heard of that
25
one.
years, right? It happened about 25 years ago, so stay tuned, folks. That will be an upcoming episode. But right now we're covering experiments. Anywho, so 75 men actually applied, but only 24 were selected, all of them deemed psychologically stable, healthy, and predominantly white and middle class. They were randomly assigned roles, 12 guards and 12 prisoners, with the backup in case and with backups in case anyone dropped out. But they, after signing up, had no idea what they were walking into. So, just to give you a little insight.
And the thought, I think I'm thinking, so they were all like male, they were all white, predominantly white. It's like, okay, so they're trying to make the pool as equal as possible to keep their control, like
Yep,
the control group. So that makes
exactly.
sense that they're all starting off at like the same base. Okay.
So everyone was given the prison life study general information packet, which I actually have printed out here. And like I said, I really do want to start posting these things because I'm not even joking you. I'm showing Mariah. I have stacks on stacks of research.
Megan looks like me right now. Like
Yep.
just here's all my shit. It's like 100 pages.
So just to break it down, I don't want to read the whole thing, but I just want to say purpose, a simulated prison will be established somewhere in the vicinity of Palo Alto, Stanford, to study a number of problems of psychological and sociological relevance. Each volunteer must enter a contractual arrangement with the principal investigator, Dr. I'm going to call him Dr. Z, so that way I don't have to keep saying Dr. Zimbardo,
Fair.
agreeing to participate for the full duration of the study. It is obviously essential that no prisoner can leave once jailed except through established procedures. In addition, guards must report for their 8-hour work shifts promptly and regularly, since surveillance by the guards will be around the clock. 3 work shifts will be rotated, or guards will be assigned with a regular shift day, evening, or early morning. Failure to fulfill this contract will result in partial loss of salary accumulated according to prearranged schedule to be agreed upon. So that's a little bit about that. Food and accommodations for the prisoners will be provided, which will meet minimal standard nutrition, health, and sanitation requirements. A warden and several prison staff will be housed in adjacent cell blocks, meals and bedding also provided for them. Medical and psychiatric facilities will be accessible should any of the participants desire or require such services. All participants will agree to having their behavior observed and to be interviewed, perhaps also taking psychological tests. Films of parts of the study will be taken, participants agreeing to allow them to be shown, assuming their content information of scientific value. The 2 problems to be studied are the development of norms which govern behavior in a novel situation, the creation of psychological environment within physical environment provided, the different perception of the same situation, the quote unquote prison experiments from people who are initially comparable from the same population, but are
Mhm.
arbitrarily assigned to play different roles. So that's a little bit about that. And
So
then,
exactly what I said, like similar backgrounds and stuff, but playing different roles. This is gonna give these people fucking PTSD.
oh, yeah,
This
so,
is fucking nuts, and it sounds illegal already. The fact that this was approved is nuts.
yep. So this is the consent form. I blank. So in this case, I'm going to say I, Megan, the undersigned, the
Uh-oh.
the undersigned, sorry. I was reading it weirdly. Undersigned hereby consent to participate as a volunteer in a prison life study research project to be conducted by the Stanford University Psychology Department. The nature of the research project has been fully explained to me, including without limitation. The fact that paid volunteers will be randomly assigned to the roles of either prisoners or guards for the duration of the study. I understand that participation in this research project will involve loss of privacy and that I will be expected to participate for the full duration of the study, that I will only be released from participations for reasons of health deemed adequate by the medical advisors to the research project, or for other reasons deemed appropriate by Dr. Z, principal investigator of the project, and that I will be expected to follow direction from staff members of the project or from other participants in the research project. I am submitting myself for the participation in this research project with the full knowledge and understanding of the nature of this research project and of what will be expected of me. I specify release of principal investigator and the staff members of the research project, Stanford University, its agents and employees, and the federal government, its agents and employees, from any liability to me arising in a way out of my participation in said project.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. They did not in any of these documents give a time frame
Not that. Well, yes. So
so far, at least.
so far. So, well, they were. Sorry, I'm just trying to organize everything so that way I don't lose my spot. They did expect to stay for 2 weeks. That was
Okay.
the experiment was meant to last 2 weeks, but
Okay,
spoiler,
2 weeks isn't crazy.
no, but it was canceled after 6 days because of the out of control shit
Six
that
days.
we're about to go into.
Only 6 days is crazy. Like when you were first saying this experiment, I'm thinking like a couple months. Like, how long are we talking? You're like, 6 days is all it lasted.
Just 6 days, and like shit got so out of control that they had to cancel it.
Okay, all right.
So, welcome to the Stanford Prison. The prison wasn't actually a correctional facility, but a mock prison built in the basement of the Stanford's psychological building. To make it feel as real as possible, former inmates served as consultants in its design. So the cells held three prisoners each. A small corridor acted as the quote unquote prison yard. A closet was designated for solitary confinement, a dark, cramped space meant to break the will of any troublemakers. From the cells, a larger room was set up for the guards, a place of comfort and power. To simulate surveillance and control, the entire setup was bugged with hidden cameras and microphones. Guards had their own space, free to relax and go home after shifts. Prisoners, however, were locked inside 24/7, completely at the mercy of their captors. I'm looking at Mariah's
They
face
couldn't even
right
go
now.
home, girl.
Yep.
They couldn't even go home.
Mm-mm.
So yeah, just sleep in that fucking dungeon. So I bet you, no spoilers, because listen, I don't know it. I don't know the story yet, but I bet you the second I heard there was a closet, I was like, oh, one of those guards is throwing somebody in the closet for solitary confinement overnight.
Oh, absolutely.
Like
And
it goes without saying, I don't even know the story, and I'm like, I know that's what Megan's gonna tell me.
oh, it gets really bad. Or, yeah.
Yeah, and you can keep chatting and I'll listen and I'm gonna get my own refill.
Cool. So, the guards. Before the study even began, the guards were given an orientation on their role. Maintain order, keep prisoners in line, and exert control, but without physical violence. To strip them, meaning the prisoners, of their to strip them of their individuality and make them feel powerful, they were provided with military style uniforms, khaki shirts and pants, mirrored sunglasses preventing eye contact, making them appear emotionless, and wooden batons symbolizing authority. With no formal training, the guards were left to create their own rules, a dangerous level of freedom in a setting where they had absolute power over these prisoners. So that's a little bit about the guards. Now let's take a look at the prisoners, right? So the moment the prisoners entered, their psychological transformation began. They were arrested by real Palo Alto police officers in California, handcuffed, searched, and blindfolded before being brought to the basement prison. They were stripped naked, deloused, and given uniforms, a smock-like dress with no underwear, an ID number in place of their real name, and a stocking cap instead of their own hair. So basically, they just had to wear this hat on their head. So guards were also only required to address these prisoners by their number. They were no longer like individuals, they were simply a number. A heavy chain was bolted to their right ankle, a constant physical reminder of their oppression. They referred to by numbers, not names, like I said, eliminating individuality, reinforcing their subservient role. The goal? Total dehumanization. Zimbardo wanted to stimulate how real prison environments strip people of their personal identity and sense of control. So there were early signs, of course, as I'm like looking at Mariah, and she's like, I can see the stunned look in her face. There were a lot of early signs of psychological breakdown. Um, at first, the prisoners did resist. They tested boundaries, pushing back against the guards' orders. Some even tried to stage small rebellions. But the guards, freed from any real consequences, began to escalate their authority. They implemented degrading punishments, forcing prisoners to do push ups, clean toilets with their bare hands, or stand in a stress position for hours. They manipulated prisoners psychologically, separated them, cutting off access to blankets or depriving them of food or bathroom breaks. Solitary confinement, as Mariah called it earlier, became a tool of control. Those who resisted were thrown into a pitch black closet, isolated and alone. Some prisoners
What you're
coped by.
describing is, sorry.
Oh, what were
What
you
you're
going to say?
Sorry, what you're describing, is this the first day, or are you describing the overall conditions?
This is the overall
Do you not
condition.
know?
I'm
Overall, okay.
gonna I'm gonna
This was over the
go.
course of the 6 days, okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna go into like day one, day two, day three, day four. I'm gonna
Oh,
go
okay.
into all
You're
days,
giving us a little prep.
but I'm giving you a little prep. I might be giving you a little bit too much prep.
I know. I'm like, oh, this is a lot of juice.
Um, so one thing, yeah. So what I'll do before actually going into the day to day is explain why the experiment still kind of haunts us. The Stanford Prison Experiment, it's a chilling example of how quickly conform to roles when given power or stripped of it, which is essentially what Dr. Z was trying to look for. He was trying to find it was kind of a two-folded thing. They wanted to see how people act under pressure if they're given authority versus taken away authority. But then they're also trying to see that nature versus nurture aspect, right? Is someone truly born evil or can they be turned evil due to circumstance? So it kind of it was a stepping stone in psychological history and honestly the overarching idea of this military issues that have been going on in prisons and stuff. So anyway, the beginning. So, as I said, these people were given an ad that they decided they wanted a part-time gig, 15 bucks a day. Like I said, it's actually $116 a day in today's standards, not 106. So, sorry, it was a little off by
Wow.
$10. Um, but and then they were prepped, randomly selected, and then brought in. So, day one, they were arrested early in the morning, brought into the station to get actually like booked at the actual police station. And, and then they were actually brought to the basement of Jordan Hall at Stanford University.
What an awkward car ride that must have been.
So the prisoners, still reeling from their humiliating arrests, because actually it was technically a surprise arrest for them, because they were told that they were selected for this experiment. They signed the consent form, and then they were just told to go home and we'll let you know when the prison experiment starts. Like, we'll call you when it's ready. And then they just
We'll
like,
call you.
and then all of a sudden they get a freaking knock on the door by real police officers who like actually arrest. Yeah. So pretty crazy. So they're kind of like reeling from this humiliating arrest. They were brought to Stanford's makeshift jail. They were stripped naked, deloused with a spray, given uniforms and assigned ID numbers. Their names no longer mattered. The numbers did because they ain't special no more. Meanwhile, the guards were given, like I said, the military khakis and given the look of power. The first day passed relatively smoothly. The prisoners settled into their cramped cells, and the guards assumed their position of authority. But that would change very quickly. Day two. At 2:30 a.m., loud whistles, clanging batons, and shouting jolted the prisoners awake. It was time for the first count, a routine meant to establish control and reinforce their new identities. The guards forced the prisoners to stand at attention while they barked orders, correcting anyone who hesitated to recite their number. But later that morning, the prisoners decided they've had enough. They rebelled, refusing to obey orders. They barricaded themselves inside their cells by pushing their beds up against the doors. They tore off their numbers, ripped apart their stocking caps, and taunted the guards. The guards kind of panicked at first because they weren't sure what to do, but they quickly regrouped. First, they called in reinforcements. Extra guards who weren't on duty arrived to help regain control. Then they grabbed fire extinguisher. Then they grabbed fire extinguishers and sprayed freezing carbon dioxide at the prisoners through the bars, forcing them back one by one. The
Oh my,
prisoners were pulled from their cells, stripped naked, had their mattresses removed, and were placed in solitary confinement.
wait, what? There's only one solitary confinement, right?
Well, I think they probably took turns, you know, like each, like
Well, at
maybe.
first I'm like thinking, oh my God, wow, the prisoners were like, we're done with this really quick. It was less than 24 hours. But like also, why are the guards over there at 2:30 a.m.? Like, get up!
I
Lieutenant.
think a lot of it too was like they were trying to test the limits, right? They wanted to see if they even could rebel. Because like they know this is fake. Everyone knows this is fake. But the
Right,
issue
yeah.
the issue is like the guards end up taking it too seriously and exerting too much power.
It makes sense if they know it's fake, like, yeah, let's board it up, fuck them. Oh, yeah, rah, rah. But then the guards coming out with the fucking fire extinguisher, that is so bad. No part in that release form you said did it say that there's possible like death or serious injury. And I would hazard to say getting sprayed with a fucking fire extinguisher threatens your health by a lot. And that is not part of
Yeah,
this
carbon dioxide's
waiver.
toxic, and I'm pretty sure they tell you not to eat any fire extinguisher
I
stuff.
mean, right? So I'm like, okay, right then and there, it's like you can't do that, guys. Like,
Mhm.
what? So okay, they continue.
So, physical punishment wasn't enough. And again, the rules simply were you couldn't put hands on these individuals. You couldn't cause violence. There was no rules against like
Oh,
other.
but fire extinguisher's fine.
I guess in this case it was. They were not.
Okay.
The guards were not reprimanded.
And like yanking them out of their cells and throwing them in solitary confinement is fine. Well, I mean, I guess if they made
Well,
a
they were
sol
trying to wake them up to, like lack of sleep, not to give away our next topic, but lack of sleep, is a way of torture,
yeah.
like not letting someone sleep. So they actually then also turned to psychological warfare. To break their unity, they created a. Sorry, my cat just almost knocked my seltzer water off the table. Anyway, to break their unity, they created a privilege cell. The prisoners who had been least involved in the rebellion were rewarded with clean uniforms. You just see Stashy in the background.
Good.
Anyway, the prisoners who had been least involved in the rebellion were rewarded with clean uniforms, hot meals, and beds, while the others remained cold, hungry, and humiliated. After just a few hours, they switched the prisoners around, leaving everyone confused and distrustful of one another.
What do you mean by that?
So all of a sudden, the bad prisoners were being treated well, and the good
Why would
prisoners
they
were
do
being
that?
because they're trying to fuck with them. Like
This is on the
literally,
guards. This is
yeah.
not on
The
professors.
guards is doing this to the prisoners. They created privilege cells, and
What the fuck?
they were confusing
Okay.
all of them. They were trying to break any chance of any like unity between the prisoners, like any
Yeah,
like,
okay.
group ups. So now none of them could, trust each other because they all had a chance in the privilege cell. So who's special, you know?
Mm.
Day 3 and 4, They began handing out arbitrary punishments, forcing prisoners to do endless push-ups, cleaning toilets with their bare hands, like I kind of gave you a little synopsis, and sometimes sleeping without blankets in freezing conditions. One prisoner, known as number 8612, was the first to break. Less than 36 hours in, he began suffering from uncontrollable crying, rage, and emotional distress. But instead of releasing him immediately, Zimbardo and his team thought he was faking it. To test him, they offered him a deal, become an informant, and they'd protect him from further harassment. Instead, prisoner 8612 warned his fellow inmates, whispering, "You can't leave, you can't quit." It was a chilling moment that solidified their grim reality. By day four, guards had successfully turned the prisoners against each other. They labeled some as troublemakers and others as good prisoners, deepening divisions. Trust was shattered and any lingering resistance disappeared.
So
So I
that person, he left.
He did. And actually, I do want to get into him a little bit more because Douglas Corpy, the prisoner who is 8612, on August 16th, 1971, at 22 years old, he's slim, short-haired, statured, with a mop of pale, shaggy hair, was locked in a dark closet in the basement of Stanford's psychology department, naked beneath a thin white smock, bearing the number 8612, screaming his head off. I mean, Jesus Christ, I'm burning up inside, he yelled, kicking furiously at the door. Don't you know I want to get out? This is all fucked up inside. I can't stand another night. I just can't take it anymore. So he did end up getting released. But that was one of his well-known quotes, that during my research is something that he said that he wanted to get out. And going into it later, I want to touch upon something else that he brought up after the experiment, which will be interesting. So at this point, 8612, he's gone. But Zimbardo's prison had become so real that the guards believed their prisoners were plotting an escape. An informant claimed that prisoner 8612, who had been released earlier, was planning to return with his friends to free the others. The guards panicked. Zimbardo himself became so lost in the role as prison superintendent, or otherwise known as the warden, that he tried to have the prisoners moved to a real jail in Palo
Stop it.
Alto for safekeeping. When
Day
police
four.
when police refused, he devised an elaborate plan. Dismantle the prison temporarily and hide the prisoners elsewhere. Trick 8612 into believing the experiment had ended. Re-arrest him and bring him back to the prison.
What? Zimbardo wanted to do that?
Yes.
The
So,
guy who started this whole thing,
yes, the professor.
he wanted to trick him to come back.
Yes, with the guards like being like, "Yes, let's do this." But the
What the
plan,
fuck? Day four, right? Or day five? Day
day
four?
4. Or sorry, day 5.
This is day five. That and they want to put the could you imagine? They're just like, hey, police, can we like borrow your jail? Like we actually want
Literally.
to like arrest them for real.
Well, he just wanted to put them like safely away so that way they couldn't get like tampered with by this prisoner who was supposedly going to come back and free them.
Oh my God, they are nuts.
Which, yeah, the plan essentially was unnecessary and no escape ever attempted to happen.
Obviously, they didn't get to go to the real jail.
Yep. So, meanwhile, Zimbardo invited a Catholic priest to speak with the prisoners. Some introduced themselves only by numbers and as though their real identities had actually vanished. So it got to the point where these poor prisoners just that's who they were. That was their life and that's all
And
they knew.
literally within 6 days is crazy.
Yeah. Then came prisoner 819, who suffered a full psychological breakdown as he sobbed uncontrollably. The other prisoners were forced to chant, "Prisoner 819 is a bad prisoner because of what prisoner 819 did. My cell is a mess, Mr. Correctional Officer." So, a lot of these, like, same with prisoner 8612, like when he quit, and now this prisoner who's having a mental breakdown. Like all the other prisoners like taunted the other ones. And they were like, fuck you, dude. Like you suck. Like you're a bad, like all of them, no one was safe. And they, all of them were alone. Like they couldn't
Prisoners
confide in
didn't
each
even like
other.
each other.
Yeah, because the guards forced them not to like each other because of the manipulation tactics they used, having
How do
them,
they know the manipulation tactics? They're not real guards. That's crazy. It's like
I
we're
don't
like
know.
in our nature, like we're like just we know how humans work. We know how to get under their skin.
Yep.
That's nuts.
So 819 refused to leave despite his condition, saying, I can't leave. I'm a bad prisoner. At that moment, Zimbardo snapped back to reality. You're not prisoner 819. You are blank. This is not a real prison. I am a psychologist, and this is just an experiment. The prisoner stopped crying, looked at Zimbardo, and simply said, Okay, let's go. It was the first time Zimbardo actually realized how far he lost control of this experiment.
So that's day 6.
That was day 5.
Oh, okay. Well, you
So
said it goes for 6 days, so I'm like, okay,
sorry,
so
day 6 was
right.
the day that the experiment ended. We're
So
still
this is
on day
like
5.
the nail on the head then?
Yeah, exactly.
Or at least
Oh.
now Zimbardo's not being a fucking weirdo. Like, okay, yeah, let's get you guys to safety.
I also wanted to bring to light, which I don't think I ended up covering in that little intro, is
And that's
so
the
an
time frame. Okay.
So on August 19th, on day 5, there was also the day was scheduled for visitations by friends and family of the inmates in order to simulate the prison experiment. Zimbardo and the guards made visitors wait long periods of time to see their loved ones. Only 2 visitors could see any one prisoner, and only for just 10 minutes while a guard watched. Parents grew
What the
concerned
fuck?
about their sons' well-being and whether they had enough to eat. Some parents left with plans to contact lawyers to gain early release of their children. One source says that we were worried that when the parents saw the state of our jail, they might insist on taking their sons home. To counter this, we manipulated both the situation and the visitors by making the prison environment seem pleasant and benign. We washed, shaved, and groomed the prisoners, had them clean and polish their cells, fed them a big dinner, played music on the intercom, and even had an attractive former Stanford cheerleader, Susie Phillips, greet the visitors at the registration
Susie
desk.
Phillips. Leave Susie out of it.
Poor
Leave
Susie. What did she ever do? It's not her fault she's got big boobies.
the movies. That's wild, my guy. The
So,
parents are gonna take them home early. Like, guys, this is an experiment. What the fuck?
I know. Also on day 5, Christina Massalash, a recent Stanford PhD, also visited the prison that night and was distressed after observing the guards abusing the prisoners, forcing them to wear bags over their heads. She challenged Zimbardo about his lack of caring and oversight and the immorality of the study. Finally, she made it evident that Zimbardo had been changed by his role as a superintendent into someone she did not recognize and did not like. Her direct challenge, as well as the shared opinion from others, such as Curtis Banks, who was another researcher, prompted Zimbardo to end the SPE, Stanford Prison Experiment, the next day. Now, you may be asking, why did I bring up Christina? Well,
She had big boobs too.
no, Christina also happened to be his girlfriend and future wife. So she was a
Bardo?
recent, yeah, Zimbardo, like the professor. She was a recent PhD graduate. Um,
And she was seeing him.
she was seeing him and was like, dude, this is uncool. So I guess I kind of jumped ahead. So day 6, like I said, when the study was meant to last 2 weeks, it was cleared. It was clearly not going to last 2 weeks. And on day 6, the experiment ended. The final turning point, as I said, Christina Massalanch, Stanford PhD and one of Zimbardo's colleagues, but also lover, she visited the prison and she was like, hell no. She said, it's terrible what you're doing to these boys. Out of over 50 outsiders who observed the study, she was the only one who questioned its morality.
Oh, really?
Zimbardo ended the experiment on day 6 that night. The prisoners
Leave
were
it to a
relieved.
woman to call a man out, right?
Sometimes it be that way.
That's just nuts.
So the prisoners were relieved, but the guards were genuinely upset. Some of them had begun enjoying their power and didn't want it to end.
Oh
Zimbardo,
my God.
I know. He later admitted it to himself that he lost himself in this role. He wasn't just in observing this prison, he became the prison.
What's so crazy to me is like I could see this happening like over time, like a couple months, whatever. Guy, it was 6 days and you lost yourself? That's like one day more than a work week. Like what?
I don't know. I mean,
How can one week change you that fucking hard?
sometimes I feel like it's just people get so, I mean, he was probably so passionate about this project, right? Like he wanted to do this experiment, so he wanted it to work. And he was probably ignoring all the signs as to why it wasn't working and why it should be canceled. And it probably took him until his partner, because they got married, him and Christina.
Can't believe they got married after that.
Yeah. Um, you know, to kind of tell him, like, dude, this is not okay. And this should not be happening. Because, like I said,
Like,
he went ahead of himself and wanted to trick that prisoner 8612 into coming back to the prison.
what concerns me is like those guards that were like starting to like it. I'm like, did they like end up getting into, did they like apply to be a cop later on in life? You know what I mean? Like, are these horrible people like now doing that?
I don't think so. I don't think any of them are
I would hope
cops.
not because I don't think any like actual police station would. Maybe I'm naive. I would hope they wouldn't be able to actually treat prisoners like this.
Yeah, it's
Maybe they
very.
do though. I don't know, but I would hope not.
Well, so this is where stuff gets kind of interesting. So, the Stanford Prison Experiment, it remains one of the most infamous psychological studies in history. It revealed the horrifying ease in which ordinary people could be consumed by power and how quickly human nature could shift the right conditions. The study has been criticized, debated, and even debunked, which we'll get into a little bit, but the lessons remain chillingly relevant. Do you think, I have a question for you, Mariah. Do you think you could have resisted if you were given that role? If you were given that situation, I was a prisoner and you were a guard, do you think you would be a bitch to me? I mean, more than you already are.
Wow.
I'm
Okay.
just kidding.
Uh, I could see like I'd like to say no, but also like I feel like these people that were involved in the guards feel like if they were not in that situation, they would also like to think that they wouldn't react that way. So I
Yeah,
think naturally this experiment, however horrible it was, shows the more power you have, the more kind of nasty you become. So I feel
yeah,
like unintentionally, subconsciously, maybe I would treat you how I wouldn't want to normally treat you when we're in our, normal life day to day equals. If I felt that I was in a higher position than you, maybe it would be different, right? Or vice
yeah,
versa. You would treat me like shit. You
yeah.
already do, bitch. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I kind of do. No, I'm kidding. Honestly, Mariah and I treat each other better than your husband treats you and my boyfriend treats me. We've agreed. We take each other on dates. We
Uh,
said that we,
well, Keith treats me very well.
he does. We
I'd
jokingly
say
have
you
said
both
that.
treat me very well. I think that I treat you better than your boyfriend.
Oh, 100%. Also, my cat's looking like he's about to jump. Anyway, so on the final day, Zimbardo gathered everyone, guards, prisoners, and research for a series of debriefing sessions. This was an opportunity to reflect on what had happened. The participants were shaken. What had started as a simple role playing exercise had turned into something far more real than any of them expected. One prisoner, 416, later reflected, I don't regret it as an experiment or a simulation because it was a prison run by psychologists instead of by the state. I was no longer myself. I was 416. Oh, I don't regard it as an experiment or a simulation because it was a prison run by psychologists instead of by the state. I was no longer myself. I was 416. Others
A
struggled to
lot of
come.
words. You
I
really
know.
confused everybody there.
I know, I'm sorry. I was trying to say prisoner 416 essentially said that he felt that it was too real, that he felt like he
Yeah,
was a
for
number.
sure.
Others struggled to come to terms with their own actions. One guard admitted, I made them clean toilets with their bare hands. I called them names. I treated them like cattle, and I enjoyed it.
Oh God,
I
I
know. That
don't
gave me
want him to
chills.
reproduce.
Zimbardo had unintentionally uncovered something terrifying. When given unchecked power, ordinary people are capable of extraordinary cruelty. This is really hitting home right now. It feels like very similar to what I'm going through right now.
I didn't get that reference.
It's okay. I'll tell you about it later.
Oh, okay.
In later interviews, Zimbardo confessed, I was unaware, even with the Stanford prison study, about the power of the system because I was the system. So, years after the Stanford Prison Experiment, Zimbardo sought to understand the psychological mechanisms that led to all this behavior that he saw. He explored this in his 2007 book, The Lucifer Effect: Understanding How Good People Turn Evil. The title references Lucifer, the fallen angel, once God's favorite, before he became the embodiment of evil. Zimbardo argued that evil isn't just a personal flaw, it's situational. People don't become monsters overnight. The environment and the system they operate in shape their actions.
Oh no, they don't become monsters overnight. They become monsters in literally 6 days.
Right, but it's because of like the situation that they were put in and like the environment. Like he's trying to argue that the environment and the situation you're put in is what dictates how you're going to act and
He's
if you're
saying
going
like you're biologically not in control. Like he's saying every single person, if they're put in an environment or raised a certain way. Well, it sounds more even if you are raised in a good way. And I don't think that's right. I don't.
I know,
If
and
you're a
honest
morally good person, I like some people do not have it in them. I'm sure not all of the guards were pieces of shit.
yeah, no, I agree. I don't think all the guards participated in such cruel behavior towards the prisoners, but there were definitely some guards that
Oh
were
yeah.
like or horrible. And
Yes.
so what kind of made this prison experiment stand out even more is that, he ended up later applying these ideas to real world events, including the abuse of prisoners at Abu Ghraib in 2003, where the U.S. military guards dehumanized and tortured detainees in ways eerily similar to what had happened in the Stanford basement decades earlier. And this was the situation that I told you about where the U.S. military, um, they were overseas in the Middle East, and they were just completely just as I said, dehumanizing like military prisoners and like making them stand naked. They like stacked them naked on top of each other. Like I think I showed you photos, Mariah, at one point.
Yeah, I think you did.
Um, Zimbardo's biggest regret, though, was not realizing sooner that he was complicit in the psychological damage his experiment has caused.
Oh my fucking God.
So, beyond that, he proposed two main psychological processes that explained why prisoners submitted and why the guards became so sadistic. One being denied dividation, which I apologize if I butchered that word, which
Denied
means
divination.
the guards lost their sense of personal responsibility. The uniforms, the mirror glasses, the batons, it all stripped them of their individual identities. Ugh. Individual identities. They weren't John or Mike anymore. They were guards, and guards had to be power. Oh, sorry, guards had power. Number two, being learned helplessness. The prisoners became psychologically trapped. At first, they resisted, but soon they learned that nothing they did could change their fate, so they stopped fighting. Even though they could have left at any time, they didn't because they had been conditioned to believe they had no control. So there
Wow.
is a lot of controversy that goes into like the debunking of the Stanford Prison Experiment, and I think I want to cover that next. Because of Zimbardo's experiment, people will become whatever their situation demands, whether they're a monster or a hero, is what he kind of found. His biggest lesson that he took from this is that the same psychological forces that turn people into villains can also turn them into heroes. After years of studying human evil, he shifted his focus. Instead of asking why people do things, he started asking how can we inspire them to do good? His heroic i- imagination project seeks to train people to stand up against injustice, to resist the forces that make bystanders passive, or to transform them into ordinary people, or to transform ordinary people into perpetrators. So that's like one of
Hmm.
his newer things that he was working on. Um, but the Stanford Prison Experiment has left, even decades later, a lot of questions. Some questions, controversies, and comments, actually. Some argue that Zimbardo coached the guards into becoming abusive. Others claim that participants were exaggerating their distress. In 2018, leaked recordings suggested that the guards weren't simply following their own instincts, they were being pushed by Zimbardo and his team.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, in 2018. Wow.
So,
Recent developments.
yeah, so we'll get into that. So, the study also failed modern ethical guidelines for psychological research, which you called since
Oh,
the beginning.
shit.
If the same experiment were proposed today, it would never be approved.
No way. Absolutely not. They have to go through so much to get anything approved these days.
Yep. Still, ethical concerns aside, the Stanford Prison Experiment remains the most eye-opening demonstrations of human nature ever conducted. It forced the world to confront uncomfortable truths like power corrupts, situations shape behavior more than personality, and
Yep.
anyone under the right conditions can become cruel. And perhaps most disturbingly, most of us would have done the same thing, potentially. We don't know.
Mm.
Getting into the controversy. So in 2018, Ben Bloom, who was a or is an investigative reporter, investigated the experiment and exposed several troubling aspects, including the possibility that the guards were coached to be cruel and that some of the most iconic moments, such as the prisoner's breakdown, were staged. Douglas Corprew, one of the participants, later admitted that his breakdown was an act. He had faked his hysteria to escape the discomfort of the experiment after being denied access to study for his GREs. Copley's experience raises significant questions about the integrity of the study, especially when considering the other participants also reported being trapped in the experiment and unable to leave when they wished, which contradicts the narrative presented by Zimbardo. Further, the revelation that Zimbardo himself may have manipulated the experiment to fit his desired conclusions complicates the story even more. Some guards, like David Esselman, acknowledged that they purposely escalated their cruelty, feeling encouraged by the researchers. This reflects the possibility that Zimbardo may have created conditions that prompted the very behaviors the study was supposed to observe, which undermines the experiment's purpose and scientific value. Um, so the central idea promoted by the SPE, Stanford Prison Experiment, that ordinary people will inevitably engage in
What? Spit it out. Spit it out,
inevitably,
Junior.
do you know what it is?
Wait, what are you saying?
Inevitably,
Inevitably?
yeah, why can't I say it?
Inevitably? Miss
Inevitably.
Girl, OMG.
Anywho, not that that matters.
Anyway, I can't speak English. That's fine.
They will inevitably
Inevitably.
thank you, in cruelty when placed in positions of power. This has been heavily criticized. Critics such as Jay Van Bavel and Simon Vares argue that Conformity is not an automatic process, but one that arises from active social influence, shared identity, and leadership. These critics suggest that the experiment's result were not simply a natural outcome of power dynamics at play, but rather a reflection of Zimbardo's flawed methodology and influence over participants. So there have been a lot of criticisms, like it really arose around that 2018 time frame where people really started being like, this
Pretty
is,
recent.
yeah.
This came out so long ago.
Yeah, and fun fact, actually, Dr. Zimbardo actually died recently. He died in October of 2024.
Right.
Um,
Wow, that is really recent.
yeah,
Did they
so
give any deathbed confessions?
yeah. So
You're like, actually,
the two big critics were Van Bavel and this Leigh Trexler. Sorry if I'm pronouncing their names wrong. I do have both of their articles printed. Each are about 30 plus pages long, so I will try to post them so people can, like read them at their own discretion because they are, like I said, really like deep and informational. But yeah, so there's a lot that goes into it. So, since the Stanford Prison Experiment, there have been many books and movies inspired by it. And like I said, it brought up the idea of revisiting how military prisons and how other prisons are kept. And a lot of reformation, I should say, started to happen because of this experiment. So yeah, although it would never fly in today's world or standards. Something that positively came out of it is that I think there was some things being reformed because of this. The particular soldier who was reprimanded for the basically war crimes, treating, even though they were the enemy, treating them so horrifically. He was put on trial for it. So that was kind of a thing. So, last thing I want to leave everybody with, and again, so sorry for all of the notes, is a 50th anniversary document that Dr. Zimbardo wrote 50 years later after he had conducted the experiment.
and they read
This
it at his funeral.
Probably, I would not be
Kidding.
surprised. Um, this was written on August 14th, 2021. I'm not going to read.
Right after COVID. So all of COVID, he spent writing this.
Yeah. So I'll read the beginning and then I'm just going to kind of give a few cliff notes because it is about 7 pages long and I don't think that people need to know all 7 pages. But in August 1971, I undertook what was destined to become the landmark Stanford Prison Experiment. It demonstrated the power of situational forces to overwhelm otherwise good people to become cruel. When the role-playing prison guards are emotionally overwhelmed as prisoners, its takeaway messages is that the majority of ordinary people, even good ones, can be seduced, recruited, initiated into behaving in evil ways under the sway of powerful, systematic, and situational forces, both the evil of action to do bad things against others, as well as the evil of inaction to do nothing when they could or should do the right thing, being helpful and compassionate. So then, excuse me, skimming through this a little bit, he says that I was invited to an expert witness congregational hearing on prisons held in Washington, D.C., and also in San Francisco. My testimony on how prisons need to be reformed became part of the congressional record. Because of the publicity, a national TV program, Chronologue, presented the story of the prison experiment October 1971. My prison experiment continued to be influential, most notably during the 2003 Abu Ghraib prisoner abuse scandal, which I just mentioned, during which I served as an expert witness for one of the American prison guards guilty of abusing Iraqi prisoners. Sorry, accused of abusing Iraqi prisoners during the night shift. My situationally based testimony in support of Sergeant Chip Frederick, head of the shift, and his trial in Baghdad had a remarkable effect. It was the first time in that a psychological defense was used in the court of law to to an impact of the judge's verdict, reducing the intended 15-year prison term to only 4 years. So, and then in 2007, he wrote his book, The Lucifer Effect, to which he explained the Lucifer effect that I'm having a hard time reading because my lovely cat keeps trying to. Uh, he explores the dynamic transformations of good people who are given the temptation to cross the line between good and evil and become perpetrators of evil. These transformations represent fundamental personality shifts that has serious personal and social consequences. The shift is most likely in contexts where the social forces are powerful enough to overturn attributes such as personal morality, compassion, empathy, and a sense of justice. So, and then he goes on to say a lot of stuff and how much he loved the experiment, yada yada yada. Anywho,
Of course it does.
so with that, I'm gonna open the floor to you, Mariah, my lovely listener who didn't know too much about this. What are your thoughts as like a learner of said experiment?
Listening to it, I was like, there is no fucking chance like this would ever happen in these days. And like, I can't even believe this happened. And I know it's a very popular subject and a lot of people know, and I'm in the minority to not know about this, honestly, because I feel like most people are very well educated on it, but I have the mind of a goldfish, so I forget really easily if I had learned it. But something that I don't think I did think was a possibility is that this was potentially um scripted, I guess would be the word. Like
Yeah, the
there's
debunking
conspiracy.
aspect of it.
Yeah, and I guess I'm thinking like you were the one that did research on this. Do you feel after researching it that it is um played up,
Debunked.
debunked? Like,
Truthfully, no. I think it was an experiment that got out of control. And the reason I'm saying no is because there were only two people that, like, there were so many articles that I read. I have to say, out of all the research I've done, this was probably one of my top favorite ones. And then one I'm going to do next, which I'll kind of give you guys a little cliffhanger at the end. But there's so much information about this experiment. And like if you look up the Stanford Prison Experiment, they have pages upon
yeah.
pages of just like they have an entire website dedicated to this experiment to this day, and every single participant, like researcher, has like given a statement about like the people who have written. So this Ben Blum and then this the other guy, the Lex Tech something or other, they've written statements about like saying like we don't understand why you think this is fake. Like the amount of
Right.
like we have videotape evidence, we have recording evidence, we have audio evidence, we have photos. Like you can go on the website and like I'll post stuff on our social media, of course. I truthfully do not believe it's debunked because I think there's just two people that wrote articles that interviewed some of the participants
Yeah.
like
Years
not
later,
even
so it wasn't even fresh. So you
it
could
wasn't
kind of
even
think back and be like, yeah,
exactly.
maybe I was a little manipulated, like, because you don't want to believe it. I mean, that's part of post-traumatic stress, right? Like, okay, like, yeah, this was just in my head and
And maybe honestly some of
laying it
them
down.
were like maybe that prisoner 8612 maybe he was actually faking it because he was trying to study for his GREs. I did read a couple articles where, and again, it was all the same interview
I
because
mean,
like I said.
it's a reasonable thing to be like, that would be a good excuse to want to get out of something. But
Well, so he signed up. He claims this prisoner claimed to sign up because he wanted the time. He was like, I'll just be a prisoner and sit in this cell all day and I'll be able to study for my
oh, okay.
GREs. And obviously back in 1970s, they don't have like computers like we have now where we'd be like, give me my computer to do my research or my studying. He just wanted his books, but he was denied his books. And so he's claimed since then in this interview, basically saying I faked it because I really just wanted to get out in order to do my research and like also like because I was unable to do it while I was in prison. And I was like, okay, that's
I was
stupid.
gonna say, if you're in a prison experiment, why do you think they would allow you to have books? That's where I'm like,
Yeah, and again, this is like a 50-year later interview or something, or like 30, 40 years, like 2018 from 1971. Like, yeah, it's a big chunk of time. So I think it really was, I think it was an experiment that went wrong, but I also kind of feel like it was one of those happy mistakes where stuff did come out of it. Like, even though shit hit the fan quickly and things were
or did.
terrible, he did learn from it, like, all right, like people can situationally be turned evil. I
Yeah, but
wish
like
though,
that's not a good finding.
no, and
Like
it's not.
I get it and it's important to know, but like that's not good that we're like so easily
I mean, I think
evil.
there was
Like
another, I mean, there's so many countless studies though about this. Like if you think there's the Mulligan study, I believe it's called, or Matt something starts with an M, and it's about people were given they were put in a room and the people weren't actually being shocked, but it was like they were told like you need to I'm telling you to shock somebody and you have to do it and you have to shock them however many volts that I tell you, and
I think I
people
remember
ended
that one.
and it was like fate, and it was like people were fakely getting shocked, like they weren't actually like getting tortured, but the people performing the shocking, hitting the button to shock them, didn't know that. So when
And they
the
would do it. They did what they were told.
yeah, and so when the authority figure said put it all the way to the highest voltage, they were like bet and did it because that's what they were told. There's another crazy, I don't know if you heard
I can
about it.
imagine if I was doing that, I'd be okay with it. Like I feel like I would. Maybe I would because I'm scared of authority,
So
but
I
I
think
wouldn't be
that's what
like,
it is,
okay, yeah,
right?
I am very scared of authority, but I don't think I'd be like, oh yeah, hell yeah, here you go, 100. I think I'd be like, oh, I don't know.
So another, so another crazy one too, I learned about it. So I learned from my research too. So I don't want you to feel bad that you didn't know about the Stanford Prison Experiment, because something I learned is that you learned it in like a psychology course. So I don't know if you took any psychology
Here's the
courses.
issue. Girl, I graduated from college in psychology.
Mm.
That's why I'm like, I think I did know about it.
You definitely
I
heard
just
about it then.
I don't think I just retained the information and I don't think we spent a lot of time on it. I think I just like heard about it.
Yeah, I took a psychology course in high school. So another one we learned about, which was crazy, was about a woman who, I forget what state it was in, but it was like a fast food restaurant. She was like the general manager, and some man called and like claimed to be some type of like high up government police agent something, and basically made her give a strip search to her one of her employees. And it was all just an on the phone. Like she's sitting on the phone with this person and he's like, "All right, take off her pants." And she got
I've definitely
arrested.
been through that one.
That might be another good little like
Yeah,
mini
that one's
episode,
crazy.
because
That
that
sounds
one's
so insane.
and I feel bad because she got arrested, but she assumed that she was answering to authority. But she essentially
The
assaulted this
phone?
poor worker.
Oh my God.
So stay tuned for that. And I was gonna say, so a little cliff note. This episode obviously took a lot longer than I anticipated. My goal was to do a split episode of the Stanford Prison Experiment and then the Russian sleep experiment.
I was
But I
looking
th
forward to that one.
but I think due to time constraints, I think it needs to be its own episode. So stay
Yeah, I think
tuned
so
for
too.
that.
You might be able to do, because that one is kind of short, you might be able to do that one as a split with another short.
Yeah, that actually
But then
might. And
again,
then
no, knowing us, we tend to, this is the one that we thought would be a split episode is its own episode. And every time I think that I'm gonna have one episode, it's two. So it's like,
I think we also just need to agree that we're never going to go back to this whole like every other week. I think we just like to talk, and we should probably just agree to do weekly.
girl, give me 2 weeks. Not doing my case for next week.
Well, I have to do, I guess, my part. Well,
You don't have a part two.
no, I don't.
You don't. So we actually, guys, we won't be here next week. We'll be here the week after with mine because
And
this is not
then
a part two.
And then after, so not next, so next week we're off. Week after it's your topic, and then the week
Yep.
after it'll be Russian sleep experiment.
Yep.
Got it. Also, just another life update. I had 6 fish in a beta. I now have 2 fish in a beta.
Megan, what happened to the Bonnies?
All there's only 2 Bonnies left, guys.
Out of six?
Out of 6, they
Out of
all
six
just
bonbons, there's only two?
there's only two. They so I have to clean. Honestly, maybe I'll do it tonight, but it's already starting to get late, so I might do it tomorrow.
I'd
Um,
ate them all.
I desperately need to clean their tank, but there, I kid you not, are little like fish shards like all over the tank because I'm
Megan,
pretty sure that they've like eaten
Megan,
what?
I'd ate them all.
I don't know if Clyde ate them because
He ate them.
I've also heard that guppies eat each other and eat each other's babies.
I was gonna say, because I was listening to our podcast. I was listening to our podcast with my friends. I
Love
don't
it.
listen on my own, but I listen to it with them. And the second that you started mentioning the fish that you got, everybody in the car, because there was three, there was Emily, Britt, and Tori, they all were like, wait, what do you mean? She has a beta fish and she got more fish? He's gonna eat them all. I said, I don't know. Megan said she researched it and they're fine. So the fact that you're now telling me that they all fucking died, Megan?
So, 2 of them are still alive, and they all died.
Only two!
So here's the thing, they all died during periods in which that I've cleaned their tank. Like it was always like a few days after I cleaned their tank and it
You're a
died.
murderer.
So I
You're
think
a fish murderer.
but here's the thing. I've gotten water conditioner, I've gotten a water heater, I have a water filter, I have water testers to test the pH balance to make sure that there's not hardness in the water. Like I've gotten it all to like make sure that I'm like an aquatic queen and making sure that they have all their needed essentials, but I still think I'm doing something wrong. So if anyone's out there listening who's a fish, enthusiast or an aquarium enthusiast, hit me up because I don't know what I'm doing wrong because all my fish keep dying and it's sad.
I don't know why, but the second you said hardness in the water, I'm so sorry, but all I can picture is like an erect penis in the water.
You've never heard like hard water, soft water?
Oh, I have. Doesn't that mean like the iron or whatever?
Yeah. So I got
Yeah,
water
no, but when you
tester.
say
I
hardness
know.
of the water, I just picture what you talked to me about before we started this.
Oh my God. Yep. Yep. I'm with you. That's hilarious. Oh, that's funny.
Anyway,
Anywho, so yeah, so that's little mini life update towards the end there, but we hope you enjoyed the
and
Stanford
in
Prison
2 weeks we'll
Experiment.
touch in to see if the other two are fucking dead.
Yeah, we'll see if the other 2 Bonnies have survived or if they also have met their traumatic demise.
But thanks as always.
I put all my paperwork
Megan wrote
away.
it down.
Keep it real, keep it freaky, keep it
Naturally.
naturally. I hate ourselves.